1961, the world was shown what its builders claimed was the first real flying saucer, invented by this man, John Frost.
Well, the US Army are interested in a vehicle which could fly close to the ground, which couldn't be stopped by roadblocks or rivers, etc., and which could jump over hedges and trees.
There were, however, real problems with the Avrocar, as Doug Garland, one of the wind tunnel engineers, remembers.
We tested the Avrocar in the tunnel, but it was very unstable. You know, if you throw a plate or a hubcap on the ground, it will tend to roll around like this. And the Avrocar had a tendency to do that.
In fact, when the Avrocar was first revealed to the public, the whole project had actually already been abandoned. In truth, the Avrocar was not a flying saucer at all. It was actually the world's first hovercraft. It was also the almost accidental byproduct of a very secret and far more ambitious project, a project which had everything to do with flying saucers.
Quick question, do you believe in flying saucers?
Not in the sense that people believe they come from Mars and places like that, no.
John Frost didn't believe in flying saucers from Mars, but he did believe in flying saucers because secretly he was building one. This film has never been seen by the public before. Made strictly for the eyes of security-cleared military personnel, it records the work of Avro's top-secret Special Projects team, led by John Frost.
The 6 Viper engine test assembly was built by Avro Aircraft Limited to develop a power plant for an airplane of circular plan form. It consists of a basic airframe of 6 sections, excluding the outer wing, operator's cab, air intake roofs, and the flying controls.
Frost was building a huge jet-powered supersonic flying saucer, codenamed Project Y2 or Weapons System 606A.
On completion, it is anticipated that a considerable advancement will have been made toward the advent of disc flight.
And it too utilized German saucer technology.
John Frost was aware of wartime research that the Germans had carried out in flying saucer developments that were possibly the basis of what he saw all across the world as the real flying saucers in the sky. And that almost came at a time when the CIA was funding some research into a design concept much like the flying saucer he had in mind.
The US military was excited by the vision that Frost presented. These original secret project specs for the saucer showed it could fly higher and faster than any craft or weapon system then available.
Air Force documents are ambiguous about what the purpose of the saucer was. They mention it being possibly used as a special reconnaissance weapon system. Given the performance that Avro thought they could get from this vehicle, it would be able to evade any defenses and, attack any other plane with impunity.
The military enthusiastically pumped huge quantities of money into his project.
The Special Projects Group then became an entity unto itself. It was given a place in the flight test area and now began to work on what in fact Frost had started to look at as the ideal shape, a completely flying circular disc.
I had no idea that there was such a thing as the Special Projects Group, because it was very classified, top secret and all that.
Well, we had guards at all the entrances all the time, and you had to have a special badge, with a special colored dot on it to allow you into the special projects area. I was a senior designer on the special projects. I started working on the 606A as a supersonic design for the United States Air Force.
And the design he was after was in fact the most coveted designs of all aviation designer, a completely all-enclosing bodied aircraft, a flying disc.
Everything Frost had in mind was always a circle. He never wanted to change the plan for me. I think it was ideal because it was a vertical takeoff.
But in truth, the fantastic supersonic flying saucer of Frost's imagination was a long way from becoming reality. His design was one of the purest uses of the Coanda, or flying saucer effect yet, and had 6 powerful jets which sucked the air over the saucer shape. These provided the saucer with its lift and its maneuverability. But testing this craft and its 6 powerful jets was not going to be easy or safe. Ray Takuchi was put in charge of building a full-scale test rig.
And it was just, a 6-sided shape, and then we put we built the rig on top of it. I mean, the inner portion of the 606A on there with the Viper engines, and also the fan.
Each rotating assembly is comprised of an upper and lower ring of compressor blades and a central ring of turbine blades. The turbine blades are aligned with an exhaust duct, which is incorporated in the stationary structure. Each section houses an Armstrong-Siddeley Viper engine, which serves as a gas generator to drive a centrally located turbine compressor combination.
It is in fact a full-size, full-scale aircraft built into a concrete building to be testing the engines and systems of what will in fact be Weapons Systems 606A.
The saucers were supposed to have tremendous performance because the engine was huge. It was almost 30 feet in diameter, and it would have produced so much thrust that the aircraft could have taken off straight up and flown at 2,000 to 3,000 miles an hour, according to their estimates.
Air enters the compressor, and after passing through the inner wing is discharged through a series of metered apertures.
Then came the testing period. What they were trying to do was tie down one of the most powerful supersonic aircraft ever built. It was a daunting task.
As a safety precaution during the operation of the rig, the rotor section is enclosed within a steel guard.
When John Frost in fact has one run away with in fact full power, the building is cleared in the imminent threat of in fact an explosion. Once the fuel cells in the aircraft would blow up, the entire building would in fact be destroyed.
It was a terrifying moment. The engine was out of control and about to destroy the entire saucer project.
One of the engineers that happens upon the scene walks into the building and simply removes the fuel line from the runaway engine. It gradually comes to a stop.
But things were also beginning to go badly wrong for the Avro Corporation itself. In 1959, its main conventional contract, a massive project to build a supersonic jet, the Arrow, was suddenly cancelled and the company went into financial meltdown. John Frost was removed from his own project. The maverick genius behind the Avro flying saucer left the company forever and moved with his family to New Zealand. But the American Air Force were far from happy. They still wanted a saucer, and if Avro wouldn't build it for them, they'd have it built themselves. John Frost's supersonic flying saucer, like so many others, was about to disappear into the blackest recesses of the American military machine.
Well, last I heard was 606A went to Bell Aircraft in Fort Erie, I believe it was.
From then on, all that remained was rumours. In the years following the disappearance of Frost's saucer, sightings, many laughably unconvincing, continued to grow. But some turned out not to be a product of fevered imaginations at all. The CIA's U-2 spy plane was a classic black project. It operated in absolute secrecy for over 8 years and would have remained secret to this day had it not been for the dramatic events of 1960, when U-2 pilot Gary Powers was shot down over Russia and then held for 2 years before being traded for a Russian spy.
And the CIA's own history of the U-2 program makes the statement that, quote, 50% of the UFO sightings were caused by the U-2.
The U-2 flew on the edge of space, higher than anyone believed a plane could fly. Hardly surprising then that any glimpse, particularly from another plane, would provoke wonder and fear. But if the U-2 debacle proved one thing, it was that unless your secret craft actually crashes, alien flying saucers make a fantastic cover story. And if your secret craft actually is a flying saucer, you can keep the pretense up for years.
You frighten me when you talk like that.
Frost's saucer disappeared into the intense blackness of official secrecy. And America's amateur UFO spotters moved up a gear.
In Washington, a private unofficial group known as NICAP, National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, called a news conference and reopened an old argument with the Air Force.
NICAP was the main voice of the alien flying saucer theory. It was led by the pulp fiction writer who had first launched the idea at that extraordinary press conference back in 1952. 14 years later, he was still hunting aliens.
NICAP's director, Major Donald E. Kehoe, a retired Marine Corps officer, insisted that the Air Force knew more than it was telling.
We are being observed by some type of device which is ahead of us, far ahead of us, and is probably controlled by a highly advanced superior civilization.
And for the umpteenth time in as many years, the Air Force, called before a congressional committee, said it was hiding nothing. Air Force Secretary Harold Brown.
We have not been hiding anything.
It all seemed so straightforward. The amateurs accused the military of covering up an imminent alien invasion, and the military deny it. So no one looks at the third possibility, that the UFOs are military craft. How lucky for the government that these enthusiastic amateurs were so well organized.
We believe that UFOs are real, that they are from outer space, and that they are intelligently controlled.
Except their organization wasn't a product of luck at all. NICAP was led by men from the shadows. Board members included Roscoe Hillenkoetter, the CIA's first director, and a CIA operative, Bernard J.O. Carvello. NICAP's first manager was Nicholas de Rochefort of the CIA's Psychological Warfare Division, and when Kehoe resigned as chairman of NICAP, he was replaced by Joseph Bryan, also of the CIA's Psychological Warfare staff. But what of Kehoe himself?
These things were interplanetary spaceships.
Was he a genuine believer in alien flying saucers? Or did he have any connection with America's military research into German flying saucer technology? One man who might know was the German saucer engineer Andreas Epp, who'd gone over to the Americans. In an interview recorded in 1997, he came up with a remarkable answer to this question.
Glauben Sie, dass die Amerikaner das ihre Flugscheibe geheim halten wollten?
Von Anfang an. Von Anfang an. Und nur der Major Kehoe, der beim Pentagon war, in der UFO-Abteilung, also Verkundung der UFO-Erscheinungen und so weiter.
But whoever was behind the campaign to propagate the alien myth, it was spectacularly successful. Nowhere more so than in the land of dreams, Hollywood. It even sparked a religion.
All our information comes through our leader, who is a yogi, who is in direct contact with space intelligences.
We are your friends. We are your friends. Please contact us.
Then, on the 11th of November 1987, they did. It all began when a successful businessman called Ed Walters saw a strange light above his garden. He grabbed his camera and took this photograph. It was the first of dozens of sightings over the next few years.
Oh my God! I'm gonna follow it down. I'm gonna follow it down.
When the still pictures were enhanced, they seemed to show something that looked remarkably like flying saucers. The saucers were witnessed by hundreds of people, from policemen to priests.
Look!
Some more excitable witnesses even suggested they'd met the aliens. But then one man saw the photographs and reached a rather different conclusion. And he knew exactly what he was talking about.